Hello and welcome back to all of the Street Fighters, where we continue to look at almost all of the Street Fighter games in existence. We've jumped around with some of the years recently. I feel like I'm a bit out of chronological order, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We haven't set ourselves that task rigidly. We're going to try and keep it chronological, but we will falter. And this time we're back in the year 2000 with the first Capcom versus SNK game. So we've looked at a lot of versus games, namely the Marvel ones. Last time we looked at SNK versus Capcom, and there's a difference between the SNK versus Capcom games and the Capcom versus SNK games. And that difference being, if the title starts with SNK, that game is published by SNK. If it starts with Capcom, it's published by Capcom. So that seems like a subtle difference, but it actually means that the games, they play differently. The Capcom versus SNK games play like a Street Fighter game. The SNK versus Capcom games generally a bit more SNK King of Fighters-y. So I think that's worth pointing out. Anyway, this is Capcom versus SNK Millennium Fight 2000. This game was released in the year 2000, as you might guess from the title. Developed by Capcom and released in the arcades, on the Dreamcast, which is the version that we're looking at in this video, and weirdly later than that on the PlayStation, the original PlayStation. So that's a bit odd, but we'll talk about that. So Capcom vs SNK Millennium Fight 2000. I really like this game. I think, just to kind of jump straight into my feelings on the game, overall, I love SNK fighters. I love King of Fighters. I love Art of Fighting. Capcom vs SNK is absolutely great. I don't think it reaches the levels of quality that we've come to expect with the versus games, namely with the Marvel vs Capcom games. There's a few reasons for that, and first of all, it's the first thing we always talk about. It's the character roster. It's got quite a large character roster, large enough that I'm not going to read out all of the characters. It's obviously got characters from Capcom games and from SNK games. My criticism would be that the Capcom side is almost entirely Street Fighter characters. There's only one non-Street Fighter character, that's Morrigan from Darkstalkers. And the SNK side, it's got a few characters from Art of Fighting, a couple from Fatal Fury. They're basically King of Fighters games. All those characters showed up in King of Fighters. So there's an argument that the SNK side is entirely King of Fighters characters, apart from one, which is Nakaruru from Samurai Showdown. So you've got a roster which is essentially Street Fighter versus King of Fighters, which is fine. Like, I feel like you shouldn't complain about that, but it is billed as Capcom versus SNK, and I would have liked to have seen some of the other Capcom fighters that we've come to see in the versus games, like your Mega Mans and your Jill Valentines and things like that, where it's essentially Street Fighter versus King of Fighters. But anyway, that's the major criticism out of the way from the start. The interesting thing about the character selection of Capcom vs SNK is that Capcom have once again found a new way of doing a team-based fighting game, and the thing they've pulled out the bag this time is that it's a points-based selection. So you can select between 1 and 4 characters for your team, and you've basically got points to spend. You've got 4 points. You're allowed to spend up to 4 points, and all the characters in the game are split into ratios of between 1 and 4 points. So you can see where this is going. You're spending your points based on which characters you're selecting. So you've got a bunch of the characters that they're classed as 2-point characters. There's a couple of characters that are worth 4 points. So if you select them, you cannot select any other characters. You're just stuck with one. But generally, you'll be picking 2 or 3 characters, I find. If you pick all 1-point characters, you can have a full team of 4. I think that the point system's interesting, and I think it's interesting when you look at these games kind of academically and historically. I think it's a cool system. It's a bit like the 10-point system in Call of Duty, weirdly. But I think in terms of creating your roster of characters, it does mean that you always get kind of lineups that are fairly similar. It does take away some of the freedom of having whatever team you want. If you're picking one of the 3-point characters, like M. Bison or Sagat, you can't. It's impossible to choose another one, or it's impossible to select a 2-point character. So straight away, you're massively reducing the teams that you can have. If you pick Sagat, who is a 3-point character, a ratio 3 character, you've basically only got 5 other Capcom characters. Sorry, 4 other Capcom characters that you can select from, and 4 SNK fighters. So I think you understand what I'm saying. It kind of reduces the amount of character variants that you can have, which is a bit of a shame. You may recognise some of the character sprites on the Capcom side. A lot of them are taken straight from Street Fighter Alpha 3, or Street Fighter 03. So your E Honda model, your Blanca model, your Zangief model, they're just lifted straight from Street Fighter Alpha 3. Interestingly, the Ryu and Ken models are completely redrawn, they're new. And they've kind of been redrawn in a King of Fighters style. If you look at the Ryu model next to a Terry Bogard or a Kyo, it fits perfectly. The E Hondas and the Blancas slightly less. But yeah, the Ryu and Ken, they've been redrawn in this very, very like highly detailed sprite style, which is very SNK to my eyes. So once you've selected your characters, you'll also select a groove. The grooves are like a style of how it plays. If you remember the isms from the Street Fighter Alpha series, so the SNK groove is, it plays more like an SNK game. It's based on the extra mode from various King of Fighters games. And then the Capcom groove is basically Street Fighter Alpha. It's completely based on the Street Fighter Alpha series. So when you jump into your matches, you'll inevitably be in kind of lopsided teams because of the ratio system. A lot of your fights will be like 3 versus 2 or 1 versus 4 and things like that. And I think that leads to some quite interesting matchups. It's not a tag system, so although this is a versus game, you're not tagging in and out like you would be in a Marvel vs. Capcom. It's very much the King of Fighters styles, where you've got a team and you select the order that your team's going to come in, and your number one choice is in it from the start. If they get beat, they're out, and then your next character's in, and your opponent keeps the life bar. The amount of damage you did on your opponent, so you've weakened them and they're weaker in the next fight. So it's very much the SNK style, which I think is cool. I think there could have been a temptation to have this be strictly a Capcom game with some SNK characters in it, because this is a Capcom developed, Capcom published game. But they haven't done that. They've tried to marry the two systems, and I quite like that. So, as I said at the start, we're looking at the Dreamcast version here. The game did start in the arcades on Sega's Naomi boards, which were basically Dreamcast in an arcade machine. They were based on the Dreamcast technology. And then it came to Dreamcast very soon after. And the Dreamcast port's absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant. Weirdly, they then brought it to the PS1, which that's really strange. If you think like how much more powerful the Dreamcast was to the PS1, the PS2 came out a year after the Dreamcast, and they didn't bring this game to the PS2. They bought the sequel to the PS2, but this they brought to the PlayStation, and so it's an interesting port because they've had to cut it down quite significantly. This is a game that's based on the Dreamcast technology. Even the arcade machine is the Dreamcast technology. So the PlayStation version, I mean, every time we look at one of these Capcom fighters, we always talk really disparagingly about the PlayStation ports because they're normally the worst versions. But I do think it's fascinating that they brought it to the PlayStation. It shows how popular that system was. The reviews for the PlayStation version are good, but they all talk about how typically the animation is worse. Some of the stages aren't as detailed. There's a lot of talk about the colours. Apparently the colours are much duller. I haven't played the PlayStation version, but I'm here playing the Dreamcast version, and it's absolutely fantastic. There is an option in the game to link up your Neo Geo Pocket to the Dreamcast version, and I think you earn some currency for doing it that you can spend in the shop. There's like a secrets shop in the game. I didn't know that the Dreamcast had the functionality to link up a Neo Geo Pocket, and I'm presuming you link up SNK versus Capcom, the game that we looked at last time. But that's kind of fascinating to me. So I think overall I do really like Capcom vs SNK. I didn't ever play this when it first came out. I had Capcom vs SNK 2, which I think was a vastly more popular game. It came to much more consoles. It came to the PS2, the Xbox and the GameCube. So all of that generation of consoles. And it was quite a popular game, and that expanded the character roster a lot. I'm pretty sure it changed the ratio system of selecting your characters. But anyway, I played that game a lot. So coming back to this is actually the first time I've played Millennium Fight 2000. But I do really like it. I love the SNK characters. it's really fun fighting, you know, Dalsim versus somebody like King or Yuri. You know, these two sets of characters that don't normally mash together. It's a bit different to the Marvel vs. Capcom games in that, you know, the Marvel characters in those games, they weren't from another game. You know, that's a property that's like a comic property and a film property. Capcom's just taken those characters and made them into Street Fighter characters, basically. Whereas the SNK characters in Capcom vs SNK, they're lifted directly from another game series, a game series that was a rival to Street Fighter, still is a rival to Street Fighter. So it's interesting to see how they mash them up, and they actually mash together really, really well. I mean, that should be obvious because the games do play very similar. But and interesting, as I said before, how they've kept a lot of the SNK gameplay systems. So things like the team basis of the characters and the roles. You know, it's got you're pressing light punch and light kick together to do your little rolls. That's an SNK thing. And I can't believe I mentioned this before. It uses the 4-button system that you find in King of Fighters. This doesn't use the 6-button Street Fighter system. You've got 4 buttons. You've got 2 punches and 2 kicks, which is SNK. It's kind of mad that Capcom have used that in one of their games. So yeah, it's a really interesting game. I don't think it reaches the quality levels of the Marvel vs. Capcom games. I say I don't think it does. It doesn't. I think Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and even the early ones, the Marvel Superheroes games and Marvel vs. Capcom, and they're the gold standard. And I don't think Capcom vs. SNK ever reached that level, but it's still a really interesting game. So thank you once again for joining me. That is Capcom vs SNK Millennium Fight 2000. We will be looking at the sequel, Capcom vs SNK 2, at some point. But weirdly, I think soon we're going to jump back to Street Fighter 2, which feels odd, but we're going right back to the beginning. And then we're kind of creeping closer and closer to modern day. And there's still a lot to get through, but we're getting there. We're in the 2000s now. Lots of Street Fighter games to come. If you're enjoying the series, please drop a like on the video. It really helps to show me that people are enjoying the videos. Leave me a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of these. They'll pop up in your newsfeed as I do them every Thursday. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, 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 bye.